Hello dear students, welcome to a new session of the subject International Management. Today's topic is Formulating Strategy for International and Global Operations. I am Ms. Dinetya Sodarajaratna, Senior Lecturer, Department of Human Resource Management, University of Kelaniya. So the learning outcomes, we will illustrate the strategic management process and will evaluate global and international strategic alternatives and appraise every strategic alternative in detail. So in the strategic formulation, it is necessary for both at the headquarters of the corporation and at each of the subsidiaries. As we all have discussed from all the sessions, there are several impacts which mainly comes from the culture. So the headquarters culture or the national culture of that country, and as well as the subsidiaries culture, the national culture and the office culture, subsidiaries culture is different. So then this strategic formulation is very important for both headquarters as well as for the subsidiary. So most of the organizations operate for their planning cycles of 5 or more years with the intermediate reviews. Like when companies prepare their corporate plan, it's mostly for 5 years or for more than that, because the vision is not going to change such. But whenever there is a change, like income, like the impacts from economy, impact of culture, and like we have the impact on COVID-19, which is an unexpected impact. So the companies has to alter their strategies, where they have to like do some reviews for their planning cycle or for the corporate plan. So these adjustments are frequently necessary to respond to changes in this dynamic global environment, because the main, like the recent example is COVID-19. The impact for us, but and the impact for Italy, it's totally different. Okay, so impact for India, impact to UK, for USA, it's totally different. So if our mother company is in UK or USA, think about that, how much of people have died, how much of business has been impacted. So sometimes the headquarters has a severe impact rather than the subsidiary. So the strategies have to be altered according to that. So the strategy is only like altering or reviewing in headquarters is not only enough. So has to like align it with the subsidiary as well. So especially in this changing in industries like technological developments, these days we are more into like ICT technology, information communication technology. So the way of lecturing has been this much of changed. So think about how much the companies have changed according to their technological advancements or development. So because of these kind of unexpected events, as well as there are so many changes are happening for a year, for a 2 to 3 months, in terms of economic, in terms of political, in terms of cultural, in terms of societal. So the companies have to do these reviews frequently, which will be necessary for their development. Strategic formulation process is complex. That's why you don't like the subject strategic management or strategic HRM, because it's little bit complex. It's only the theory, it's really complex. So think about how much it's hard to apply into the practical scenario. That's why, like, when we are developing strategies for the company, gaining accurate and timely information is difficult. It's really hard. When it comes to international business, it's really hard, because we are dealing with people from different countries. So accurate information and timely information, on time information, gaining so such, it's difficult. And the diversity of geographic locations, like thousands and thousands of miles away, So it's really hard to connect and all. So also the differences in political, legal, cultural, market and financial process. That's why right, doing strategies or like developing strategies and implementing strategies complicated in domestic companies. So think about how much it's like complicated when we are dealing with international business. So these factors introduce a greater level of risk in strategic decisions, because there are so many like influences are coming from the background, from the environment. So like it's a huge risk when you are developing strategies for the company, because it might go wrong. So it might go wrong, there is a huge investments are made of, especially in international business. That's why it's complex. So the strategic formulation process is a part of strategic management process. So in which most firms engage either formally or informally, but obviously they are involved. So this is the process: strategic planning process and implementation process. So in the planning process, we clarify the vision, mission, objectives of the company, and then we have to assess the environment. It's a must. And since it's about external environment, we have threats and opportunities in the external environment, and then we have to evaluate our internal environment, how much strong they are, strengths and weaknesses of our internal environment. And then we have to do a competitive analysis. There are so many like models like five forces or anywhere a model can be used to do a competitive analysis. It's a must. And then consider some alternate strategies, and then you have to choose a strategy for the company. Then after choosing the strategy, it's way for implementation. So implementing strategy through like the complementary structure, it might be a tall, flat, hybrid, matrix, any structure, systems we have, and operational processes. And then after implementing, the company should have a control mechanism or evaluation system to ensure the success of the chosen strategy and the implementation of that, because it's about feedback for the planning process, where what's controlling is where we identified whether the implementation is success. If not, evaluation, where you evaluate what are the loopholes, what are the failures, and then you have to go from the process from the beginning and then alter those stuff and implement the corrected decisions. Okay, so this is the strategic management process. This is the normal process for every organization, though it's an international or though it's a domestic company. So establish mission and objectives. The mission charts the direction of the company and provides the basis for strategic decision making. So obviously, vision is the dream of the company and the mission is the direction of the company. It conveys the cultural values that are important to the company. So through like the vision, mission, we will derive the strategies, like the way of the means of achieving that mission. Okay, so the Unilever's corporate mission is to add vitality to life. We meet everyday needs for nutrition, hygiene, and personal care with brands that help people feel good, look good, and get more out of life. So while reading this, you'll understand what kind of products they have, what kind of values they have. Okay, so these are companies' overall objectives flow from its mission. So obviously from the mission, they will cascade it down and have the objectives for different branches or different departments. It might be marketing, HR, finance, operations, engineering, anything. So the firm's global objectives usually fall into the areas which I've told you: marketing, profitability, finance, production, R&D. Since it's an FMCG market, like fast moving consumer goods. People wants changes very quickly. So then you have to evaluate, you have to collect the information about the preferences of the like customers, and then you have to forward it to the research and development. They will like give you the product or the design, then it goes to the operations department, and then for the production house, then you have to think about the finance, how much it cost for to production, and then how it to be marketed. And then for all these stuff, how about the HR we have? Do we want to recruit more for the HR department? So likewise, it's like a connection of all the departments. A single department cannot run the mission. So that's why it is cascaded down and divided into different units or functional units. So this is an example. You'll read this and see what are the objectives and strategies where the companies can have, like for marketing, annual percentage of sales growth. Because why? These are measurable. Because you know, at the end of the day, the company is moving for the profit. So most of the time when you like develop KPIs, key performance indicators, at the end of the day it should be measurable. So you'll be understand this. So assess external environment. So environmental scanning and continuous monitoring to keep up to date of variables around the world that are relevant to the firm and that have the potential to shape its future by posing new opportunities or threats. Okay, so that's why we do an external environment to identify or to keep the company up to date with the changes of the environment and identify the opportunities as well as the threats, so they can convert that threat to opportunity. So firms must adapt to their environment to survive. They can't like avoid the environment. So that's why the focus of strategic planning is how to adapt. So environmental scanning, it's the process of gathering the information and forecasting. Not only about gathering the information, it forecasts about the trends by gathering the information, seeing the way customers behave. They can predict, forecast the trends, competitive actions of the competitors, and circumstances that will affect the operations in geographic areas of possible interest, like floods, might be droughts, might be any kind of environmental issues, global, regional, and national. This is not only about the domestic business. Okay, this is like always it's about international business. Thinks about you have a like the company has a subsidiary in Indonesia. It's a country where like frequently they are getting earthquakes. So they have to think on that as well when they are developing strategies. How they are faced for such kind of geographical matters. Okay. So likewise, the companies has to do that environmental scanning. And then the companies or the firms must conduct a global environment analysis in three levels. Why? This is not the domestic company. It's an international company or a multinational company. Okay, so they have to do this environmental scanning in terms of multinational, regional, and national. In terms of multinational, they do a broad assessment of significant worldwide trends, like through identification, forecasting, and monitoring activities. They see how the world behaves in terms of competition, in terms of media, in terms of customers, in terms of resources, anything. So then these trends would include its political, economic developments of the nations around the world, as well as the global technological process. So think about these days, it's about COVID-19. So we have to evaluate like how the countries behave in terms of political decisions. So think about Sri Lanka. So we have like these days we have banned imports. Okay, so if a subsidiary was dependent on the raw materials importing from their different subsidiaries, for these days they have to stop the production from the raw materials that they have gained from foreign countries. So their strategies have to be altered now, and they have to think of getting those raw materials from the domestic environment. Okay, so that's why we have to think on that. Okay, not only that, if Unilever, think about same thing, Unilever, if the company, the export has not been banned, so the companies can like focus more on exports, but for production they have to get the raw materials, so they have to think on that, how they are getting the raw materials if the imports have been banned. Sometimes they can go to an agreement with the government, they can, but don't know with these days. Okay, so the companies have to think on that, the political and economic developments. So from this information, managers can choose certain appropriate regions of the world to consider further. So in terms of, think about some companies, some countries, they are having like higher political restrictions or legal restrictions. So rather like doing business with those kind of countries, they can find out a country, another country which is very like flexible for them to continue their business further. So that's why the multinational level environmental analysis is important. And then about the regional level. So focus in more detail on the critical environment factors to identify opportunities and threats for marketing the company's products, services, or technology. Why? One such regional location suitable for investigation by a firm seeking new markets in Asia. Okay, because we are in this region, so mostly after like producing the product, we have to like think about like in Asia what kind of countries that have we have the opportunity to sell this product, rather going for the whole world. First about the Asian region, likewise the national level. So it's about an in-depth analysis because we are doing the business in our country, the company. So like it's the desired location. So they have to think about the economic, legal, political, cultural backgrounds, like whether we are going to start up the business in that kind of a country. So this analysis focus on the size and the nature of the market, along with any possible operational problems, to consider how best to enter the market. So that's why like strategy, like if it's opening business, so you scan the international level, see what kind of political, legal environments are there, like how much opportunities are there. So you see like Asian market has some kind of opportunities, and then you are like analyzing the Asian region now. How can I market this product to the Asian region? And then you select Sri Lanka, and then you have to like do an in-depth analysis because you are going to do the business here. So doing the business, whether is there are any possible things for us to like open the business here. Likewise, it's a three-level analysis from the multinational level, regional level, and national level. Then about the internal factors, determines which areas of the firm's operation represent strengths and weaknesses compared to competitors. That's why we have to think about currently and potentially what the company's internal strengths or weaknesses in terms of employees, in terms of technology, in terms of the production facilities, in terms of the geographical location, anything. So it's about the company's internal environment. So you have to identify the strengths and weaknesses. So the strengths and weaknesses of the firm's financial and managerial expertise and functional capabilities are evaluated here in terms of financial, how much finance that the company has, the expertise of the managerial or employees, and the functional capabilities to determine the key success factors that company has and how well they can like exploit to win the competition. Okay, but what they have like key success factors, sometimes might be resources, key success factor. Sometimes the key success factor is humans of the company. They are the key success factors which are the strength of the company compared to their competitors. So using that key success factor, company can exploit the foreign opportunity with the knowledge of like research and development company, anything. So likewise, the company has to identify the key success factor. Might be information technology, might be the human expertise, might be there are like finance, anything. So you have to identify that the internal factors compared to the competitors when like the company starting a business in the international environment. So these are the key success factors of like the world famous companies. Apple and Huawei technology, they have the technological capability rather than other companies. So their technological capabilities has been the key success factor to drive them for success. And then Carrefour and Walmart, they have effective distribution channels. You might have heard at least Walmart, which is a world famous supermarket chain. We don't have in Sri Lanka still, but mostly developed countries, and they have. It's a famous supermarket chain for us, like Kiehl's, Cargill's, Apico, and the others. Okay, so they have effective distribution channels. That's why they have been like success than the other competitors. And then about the Nike and Disney, they have superior promotional capabilities, promotion capacities. That's why Disney is very famous with their promotion. And then Toyota, its low cost production and sourcing position. Though the Toyota production like cars and all, it's very expensive in Sri Lanka, it's another story. It's a different story. Okay, it's about taxes, but compared to other cars, vehicles and all, Toyota has low cost with their Toyota production methods and all. You might have learned into total quality management. So they have low cost production. So that's why the Toyota cars are very famous in other countries, which it's affordable. So these people, that the company can use many diagnostic tools to conduct this internal resource audit. Okay, so for an example, financial ratios, which will reveal the inefficient use of assets, that has been like a barrier to go for profitability. It's a basic example, financial ratios, which you can identify your financial capacity, whether it's a strength or not. Okay, so that's likewise the companies has to do a internal factor analysis to identify the key success factors of the company which supports them to exploit the international market opportunities. A competitive analysis, it assesses the firm's capabilities and key success factors identified compared to those competitors. So it's when you are doing the competitive analysis, you have to judge the relative current and potential competitive position, because with the forecasting we discussed, the companies has to do forecasting. So whenever you identify your key success factors, you have to identify the potential current level, and you have to like the forecast it and identify the competitive position of the company in that market as well as the location. Okay, so the location might be the global position, and you have to think about the specific country and the region, and like evaluate in the three levels: multinational level, regional regional level, and the national level. So here it assess the current competitors, so global and local for the proposed market, because you are going to start up the business in the international environment. So you have to like evaluate the competitors of the proposed market. Think about, we discussed we are going to select Sri Lanka. So it's about a, for like example, a shampoo. Okay, okay, so you have to think about the competitors. Like there are so many companies which they like very well like introduce their company, marketed, and they are like well established. But how you can like be unique as a product in Sri Lankan market? It might be Ayurvedic, it might be sometimes it's anything. So likewise, you have to think about the competitors. So company has to think about what are our competitors' positions, their goals, their strategies, their resources, their strengths, their weaknesses relative to our firm. So you have to evaluate all these stuff. And then not only that, what are the companies like competitors' reactions to our strategic moves? You have to think on that as well. How that company, the competitor, has reacted before to competitors. Then you can forecast how this company will react on you. So when you are doing the competitive analysis, when you are analyzing the competitors, you have to be very careful on that. How that company has used their resources, what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses. Weaknesses are must, because you can attack to those weaknesses to ensure your position in that market. Not only that, you like think about, read the stories of their past, how they have attacked the competitors, like for the business that you are going to do. So likewise, you have to assess the competitors as well. And then, like competitive analysis here, you have to do a SWOT analysis. In this, you will identify, the company will identify the capabilities relative to those of its competitors are assessed as relevant to the opportunities and threats in the environment for those firms. Okay, so what you do is you do a SWOT analysis relative to your competitor, the company's competitors are assessed. So most of the companies develop their strategies around these key strengths. That's what core competencies are. You have learned what core competencies in when you are doing strategic management. It's like the usually difficult for competitors to imitate. That's what core competencies are, or distinctive competencies. Okay, for an example, Apple has used its capacity to constantly innovate and apply its technology to new products and services, which it's a core competency of Apple where other companies still cannot like imitate. Okay, so that's why they are still successful. Managers must also assess its firm's weaknesses as well, not only the strengths, for you as well. So like a company already in shaky ground financially will not be able to consider an acquisition strategy because they are like not good in financial position. So not only that, they can't go for a growth strategy as well because they are not financially strong. So the companies, when financially not strong, they can't acquire business or they can't expand their business. They have to like think about protecting their business currently. Okay, that's why competitive analysis is a must. Okay, to approach the world market, so we were discussing that there are strategies. So this is a global strategy. It is where the company treats the world as an undifferentiated worldwide marketplace. That means they believe that all the preferences or the customer preferences around the world is same. So they don't like differentiate any region or any continent where they treat the world as a one marketplace. So they established worldwide operations and they developed a standardized product and standardized marketing. When they are developing the packages, then advertisements, they are same to the whole world. They don't customize it according to the regions. Or the product is a standard product. It does not have any differences according to the regions or cultural backgrounds or nothing. And here it competes with the others by establishing worldwide economies of scale. You know what economies of scale is? Mass production which get with a low unit cost. Then it enables, since it's a standardized product, it enables the companies to have economies of scale. And offshore manufacturing, because it's a standardized product, they can have a standardized procedure and standardized raw materials, so they can go for offshore manufacturing and have international cash flows. So to have a global strategy, there are some pressures which comes for them to go for globalized strategy. So it's increasing competitive clout resulting from regional trade blocks. We discussed these trading blocks as NAFTA, SAFTA in the first session. So through that we discussed how those regions get together and have different associations to enable them to have ease of having international business. So when they have such kind of blocks, the those arrangements or associations are not willing to buy the products from others, and they have some kind of barriers to other countries. But with having a standardized product, they can approach to these markets. And when the countries decline tariffs, it encouraged the trading across borders, and which open up new markets. And the information technology explosion. So it enables to coordinate this far-flung operation. That means operations beyond boundaries. It's easier, and with the information technology explosion, it creates a commonality of consumer taste, because each and every product around the world reaches to every customer. So it increases the commonality of the consumer taste. That's why that much we also depend on imports rather domestic products, because our like the Sri Lankan taste also like adapting to the Western taste. Then the whole world is going for a common taste. So such kind of things enable the company to have a global strategy. So mostly the websites has allowed entrepreneurs as well as established companies to go global, like eBay, then Alibaba Express, and different kinds of e-commerce websites enables the businesses to go global. Okay, so automobile industry, Caterpillar, ICI, Sony, Lenovo, mostly the products in technological industry and manufacturing cars, but yet there are some differences. But yet automobile industry and technological industry have a standardized product, because Sony does not manufacture a product for Asian region, but the softwares might be little bit with the Sinhala font and all. We had such, but now I don't think so, but yet it's so. So in terms of Lenovo, they use a global strategy where they don't have a headquarters. That's why I told you operations are around the world. So the senior managers rotate meetings around the world. So they go different countries and have meetings. So they have a global marketing department in Bangalore. So the global marketing department handles the marketing facilities to the whole over the world to the Lenovo company. And they have a development team which comprises several centers around the world, often meeting virtually. That's why this technology expansion has supported this global strategy very well. And one of the quickest and cheapest way of develop a global strategy is through strategic alliances. Okay, so when we are doing a global strategy, best thing is to go like strategic alliances with rivals, competitors. It's okay. Sometimes it's better to be friend with a competitor and like approach to a new market by providing them what they want. Sometimes with suppliers, sometimes with customers. Okay, but the problem is global strategy is more vulnerable to environmental risk in terms of political, and then for environmental, customer, then legal. So it's because we, like the company, only do a standardized product. So the lack of local flexibility, that means adapting to the regional requirements, there's very lack. So responsiveness and neglect of the need of differentiated product has a problem, and it's a risk to like to have this kind of a global strategy, because when people having a global strategy and when consumers need a differentiated product, then this company will face a problem. So managing global organizations are difficult, as it is requires the coordination of broadly different national cultures. So it's really hard. Though there are like technological expansions, yet the culture is different. So must denationalize the operations and replace home country loyalties with a system of common corporate values and loyalty. So then like they should have a common set of values and loyalties that will enable the headquarters to, or for the whole company to audit, monitor easily. If the companies have different practices in different subsidiaries, the uh, like especially the head of companies like board of directors or in the top positions will face a real problem to monitor the company's procedures. Then regionalization strategy, or multi-domestic or multi-local strategy. So its local markets are linked together within a region, allowing more local responsive and specialization. In the global strategy, they didn't think about this local responsiveness, and they haven't think about this specialization or a differentiated product. They have given a standardized product. But when a company wants to, or they are like applying a regionalization strategy, that means they're linked to with the region, and they are like going for little bit of a local responsiveness and for specialization. So top managers within each region decide on their own investments, locations, product mixes, and competitive positioning. So they run their subsidiaries and like as quasi independent organizations, like they are not totally depend on the headquarters. They depend, but to a like for a certain point. That's why it's quasi independent. Okay, so about the investment locations and about the product mixes and about the competitive positioning, it's decided by the uh, like the companies in who are using this regionalization strategy. So why companies like why how the companies are pressurized to use this localization strategy? So unique consumer preferences resulting from cultural and national differences, perhaps something as simple as right hand drive cars for Japan. So in Japan, people prefers like cultural forces there where they drive like from the right hand. So then they need a like the vehicles to be adjusted according to that. And not only that, mostly the cultural backgrounds, like think about Muslims, they have a separate culture. So some products they required some differentiated products. So when they are like focusing on a country which is majority are Muslims, or majority of like Middle East countries or Muslims who are majority, so might be they have to like specialized their product having local responsiveness. Or domestic subsidies, if you have a domestic subsidy, you have to like do this local responsiveness. Or new production technologies that facilitate product variation for less cost than before. So rather than doing a standardized product, Sometimes there are new production facilities which supports for product variation. So when the companies can afford such a technology, they can go for differentiated product. So for an example, Nokia, Nestle, Google, Walmart have failed to adjust to the taste of South Korean consumers. So that's why they have like washed off from South Korea, and there are some other products which established there. So global integrative strategy. This is integrative both vertically, horizontally, including suppliers, productive facilities, marketing and distribution outlets, and contractors around the world. So it integrates each and every one to the strategy. For Dell as an example, when you see the Dell, you'll see it's worldwide sourcing. That means raw materials are get from all over the world. Like raw materials means like not only the equipments but the labor as well, you know that. So it's a fully integrated production and marketing system where they have factories in Ireland, Brazil, China, Malaysia, Tennessee and Texas, and they have assemblies and delivery system from 47 locations around the world. So it's a fully integrated where they have not located only one subsidiary or in headquarters. Everything is integrated, so they have extreme flexibility. They are like local responsiveness is there and flexibility is there. So that, and the next thing is Dell builds each computer to order. It carries very little inventory and therefore can change its operation at a moment's of notice. So that's why they prepare like manufacture to the order. When they get bulk orders, they manufacture and they don't need much of a inventory. That's why whenever Dell has a product, it's very less product cycle for a product, because because they produce for the order. Okay, so that's why they use a global integrative strategy. Then we have to evaluate the entry strategy alternatives. We have discussed about the strategies which companies can use as the first level. After deciding that, now we are going to enter into the market. Okay, so strategic alternatives varies by the targeted country, how potential new markets may best with less risk, and the critical environment factors. That means according to the country, you have to think about the entry strategy alternatives. For an example, think about when you are like approaching to someone, you evaluate that person's environment, their preference, styles and all. Think about that person, a country. So according to that person, you reach in a separate way. You know, it's a strategy. For another person, you approach in a different way according to that person. The same thing. Where you think about the country, it's the new market and about the environmental factors, then you will decide what is the entry strategy. So the basic first thing, I guess you have learned this in for strategic management, but this is international business and international strategy. So I'm going to touch all these entry strategy alternatives. So exporting, it's the relatively low risk way to begin international expansion or to test the overseas. Like you just export your product, you produce it in your local market, you have a like established market in the domestic environment, but after that you just test the overseas market or to begin your international expansion, you can export. So little investment is involved. A fast withdrawal is relatively easy, isn't it? Okay, you test the market, you feel that you can't gain a profit there, you just easily withdraw, because it's just you produce a extra bit of production in the domestic market and then you started exporting. Okay, so it's the primary entry strategy used by most of the small businesses to the international market. So many firms from emerging or developing markets use exporting extensively to compete overseas in a narrow product category, like Hong Kong based Johnson Electric, okay, which export most of 3 million tiny electric motors it produces per day. Okay, why is that? Where like they involve in exporting extensively to compete with a narrow product. It's a small product. Okay, so they can't like come up with a production facility in another country. It's far better for them. Like it's a small company, it's a Hong Kong based company, so they don't have that much of investment to start up doing a startup in another country. So the best way they have started to export the products. So but the problem is the distributor, finding a distributor is critical because it's another country. You can't go to that country with the products and distribute it. So it's critical because you have to find a good distributor who is trustworthy and helps you. Okay, but there are critical environmental factors as well, where about export import tariffs and quotas, because with the if the tariffs goes up, you have to increase your product price to earn a profit, and then cargo cost, and then distance from the supplier country. So with the cost increase on these factors, it enhances the cost of the product. So there are critical factors, so the person have to think on that as well when you are choosing a market to export your product. Licensing. It's the international licensing agreement grants the right to a firm in the host country to either produce or sell a product or both. So that means it's a license which gets from the headquarters or the mother company to a host country to produce or to sell or to both. Okay, so this agreement involves a transfer of rights to patents, trademarks or technology for a specified period of time. So it's a fee paid by the licensee. Relatively low risk strategy because it requires little investment, because the licensee pay a license fee and get the getting the rights to the patent, trademark or the technology for a specified period of time. So it's suitable for mature phase of a product life cycle, when a product is matured and the competition is intense and margins are declining, when the production is relatively standardized, because then only the standardized product it's easy for the host country people to produce. Okay, and they are having a mature life cycle, margins are declining, so obviously they had to go for a like extra production to sell in another country because they are matured in their own country and the competition is intense. So this is a useful option in countries where market entry by other means is constrained by the regulations. That means if a country has have regulations, if a country has regulations on getting the products like exporting and all, importing, and other means are restricted by the laws, but giving the transferring the rights is not restricted. So such kind of instances the company can go for this licensing agreement, so they can avoid that export tariffs and quotas usually imposed on exports. Okay, so there is a common disadvantage where licensor has the lack of control over licensee's activities and performance, because he has transferred the rights, trademarks, technology for a specific period of time and for a fee. Okay, mostly food manufacturing MNCs license their product overseas, and Nike and Disney as well. So franchising, it's relatively little risk. Same thing. Franchisor license its trademark, products and services and operating principles to franchisee for an initial fee and ongoing royalties. Okay, in licensee they get a license fee for a specified period. This is initial fees there in franchising, and then ongoing royalties. So mostly this is happening, like franchisees are mostly a domestic fast food industry. So for a large upfront fee, that means the initial fee is very large, and then considerable royalty payments. The franchisee gets the benefit, the firm's reputation, existing clientele, the customers, marketing cloud, the advertisements, everything, and the management expertise. Okay, so it's the ideal strategy for small businesses because the outlets require little investment in capital or human resources. So an entrepreneur can use the resources of franchisees to expand. Okay, in the franchisee, rather in licensee, it's about a mature product life cycle, and when there is a huge competition they can go for licensee. But franchising, where small businesses can, like, to open up outlets and all in different countries, they can use franchising. But the thing is, quality control is difficult with a greater geographical dispersion, because think about the headquarters in USA and we are having a franchisee here. It's really hard for them to quality control, but they try to manage it. So mostly Pizza Hut, McDonald's, Burger King, Subway, everything are franchises. Contract manufacturing outsourcing. It's outsourcing cheaper labor overseas, which involves contracting for the production of finished goods or component parts. That means they outsource the cheaper labor overseas. They get the outsource the labor. The contract is there to produce the finished goods or parts. So these goods are then imported to the home country or other countries for assembly or sale, or they are sold in the host country. That means, like, you outsource the production to another country, okay, or to manufacture parts. After manufacturing, you can import it to your country or to other country for assembly, okay, or you can sell that finished good in the host country. So this is reliable, like, it's okay, but the company needs a reliable and a quality local contractor. If not, what happens is, because the contractor, like, it's contractor manufacturing, so they'll producing a part or the full product. So if they cannot like produce it to the up to the standard or the quality expectations of the headquarters, what happens is the trust of the mother company will get destroyed. Okay, the public image will be destroyed. It's a quick entry into a country with a low capital investment and none of the problems of the local ownership. So there's no any local ownership. You just outsource the production, and then you can distribute or sell the product in that local market as well. So for an example, Nike use contract manufacturing around the world. That's why, there are so many apparel companies in Sri Lanka where they manufacture parts for Nike, and they like export it to the mother company, so to assembly. Offshoring. It's a company moves one or all of its factories from the home country to another country. One or all the factories to another country. Offshoring, going beyond the shore. So it provides the access to foreign markets and lower production cost while avoiding the trade barriers, because you are setting up your production facility in another country. So there's nothing called exports, imports, like trade barriers, nothing. Okay. So overall lower cost of production, since you establish your production plant in another country. Like over 40% of cars built in the United States are made by Japanese and other foreign companies. So, like, the production house is in United States, but the company owned by Japanese or other foreign companies. Okay, so that's like they have, like, Japan people, especially the Toyota, they have moved their production facilities majority to USA and all, because there are raw materials and all ease of that. So then they can, like, sell it all over the countries. Service sector outsourcing. Outsourcing white collar jobs. It's about service sector. for like contract manufacturing outsourcing, it means you outsource the manufacturing stuff where you outsource the full to manufacture the full production. Here, a service sector outsourcing. It outsources the white collar jobs overseas in an attempt to reduce the overall cost. You know, white collar jobs are expensive. So firms that outsource services usually enter overseas markets by setting up local offices, research laboratories, call centers, and so on in order to utilize the highly skilled but lower wage. That means majority of these multinational companies, they like set up their local offices, sometimes research and development centers, call centers in other countries to like enjoy this lower wage with high skilled labor. India, Philippines and China. So this is the ability to offer global round the clock service from different time zones. For an example, India has benefited in IT jobs. Like it's very famous that IT people are very like high literacy in IT. So that's why by Bill Gates of Microsoft, he has said that India is the absolute leader in IT services offered on the world market. So majority of call centers and majority of IT supportive services are established in India. You know, there are some systems, for an example, these core banking systems are like purchased by Sri Lankan banks from different countries like Canadian companies and all, but the supportive staff is in India. Those are the people who comes to our country, install and continuously support services, but the mother company is not India, but the IT supportive service is from India. And Indian and American IT service providers are opening offices in Hungary, Poland, and the Czech Republic to take the advantage of this German and English speaking workforce for European clients. Because in India also, they a majority of Indians speaks English. That's why they uses this call centers and IT services from India. Turnkey operations. A company designs and constructs a facility abroad, such as a dam or chemical plant, trains local personnel, and then turns the key over to local management for a fee. That means turnkey operations. You turn the key after like constructing the facility abroad, like we are having like highways, and then we have harbors, airports and all. Those are turnkey operations. The design construct facilities by abroad people, and then what happens is it turns the key, that means turns the key over to the local management but for a fee. So critical factors for success are the availability of local suppliers and labor, reliable infrastructure and acceptable means of repatriation profits. Okay. And then about the management contracts. A contract gives a foreign company the rights to manage the daily operations of a business but not make decisions regarding ownership, financing, or strategic and policy changes. Usually, management contracts are enacted in combination with other agreements such as joint ventures. So, management contracts we can say it's as joint ventures, but it says where the foreign company through a contract give the rights to manage daily operations. But the thing is, the ownership, financing and strategic policy changes are done by the mother company. But to manage the daily operations, they have given the right. So for an example, Hilton, Hyatt, Marriott, we have like famous hotels in Sri Lanka. So those are not Sri Lankan hotels, okay? But we feel that those are like Sri Lankans because it's managed daily operations by Sri Lankan. But when it comes to ownership, financing and strategic and policy changes are done by the acceptance of the headquarters with the combination on that. International joint ventures. It's a high level of investment and risk because we like joint with the local company. So an agreement by two or more companies to produce a product or a service together. So ownership is shared because it's a joint venture, you work together. So typically by a multinational company and a local partner through agreed upon proportions of equity, and that's why ownership is shared. So joint venture facilitate rapid entry into new markets because we are joining with a local partner. So it's easy for the multinational company to enter into the new market. So it's a mean to overcome trade barriers, help achieve economies of scale, can help secure access to additional raw materials, help acquire managerial and technological skills, and can spread the risk associated with the operating in a foreign environment. Okay, that means the multinational company, if they export the product, then they have to undergo with these tariffs and quotas and all stuff. But when they jointly started the business with a local company, it's about like it's situated in the local country, so no problem about the exports and all, no barriers for that. And then they can get the additional raw material from the local country, good technological skills, good suppliers, good managerial people, and then that reduces the risk for the company. But what happens is higher level of investment because they are starting the business with a local company. For an example, Google and NASA together, they have developed Google Earth. Fully owned subsidiaries. In countries where a fully owned subsidiary is permitted, so having a fully owned subsidiary should be permitted by the government. Okay, a multinational company wishing total control of its operation can start its own product or service business from scratch, or it may acquire an existing firm in the host country. So for a best example in Sri Lanka for fully owned subsidiaries are Nestle, Unilever and Fonterra and all, where they have fully owned subsidiaries. They have the total control of its operations in Sri Lanka. They have started their own products producing here or providing services from scratch, and obviously they can acquire an existing firm in the host country to start their wholly owned subsidiary. So acquisitions allow for rapid entry in markets with established products and distribution network, because acquisition is very easy because then the production facility and people are there for you to start the business, so it reduces the risk. Wholly owned subsidiaries represents the highest risk entry strategy, but the company has full control over the operations. Highest risk because you are starting your business in another country. That's what it means. So political instability can be devastating because when the political parties are not stable, so to start up a business in a foreign country, it's really hard. You have to talk with the governments, like discussions and all, sometimes to bribe, sometimes when the political parties changes, the policies changes, so it's really hard for them to start up their business. So when the political stability is there, it's easy to have a wholly owned subsidiary. So for an example, Nestle, CMCT, Unilever, Fonterra, Japanese Honda, Nissan, Toyota. In US, everything are like they are having fully owned subsidiaries in Sri Lanka. So that is the end of formulating strategy for international business. Thank you very much.